Good afternoon. I'll call the meeting of Hagen Rural for April the 16th to order. Well, there we are. Approval of the minutes. Call to order. I didn't print that page.
Oh, no problem. We got it.
Approval of the minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, a like sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Public appearances for non-agenda items. We have no. Paula, you have anything? Are you have anything to bring before us, or are you just here?
Here to see how it runs.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we have no one here for public appearances. So we'll go to the agenda items.
So, Chair, you could do an agenda item review and switch those items around if you want to.
Yes, we'll if we, so be the pleasure of the committee, we move item A to the bottom and we go to item B. Any objection to that from the committee members?
So moved.
Good.
Second. Aye. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Who had the second?
George.
So Ryan.
Okay. Neighborhood plan staff update.
All right. So I wanted to just bring a little bit of a brief update to you all. And actually I'm going to start here. And, hold on, I forgot to get into the Zoom. I apologize. So I can share my screen with those guys.
Yeah.
Deanna, you don't have to go to Zoom.
I don't.
No, go ahead and quit out of that.
Oh, okay, sorry, thanks, I wasn't sure.
Please just get started.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm gonna start off with just a brief overview of where we are on the neighborhood plans with you all. And I'll start with South Stoner Prairie. Right now, we're at the stage where we have had our third steering committee meeting. We've had an open house, and with South Stoner Prairie, we've shown the two different bubble diagrams. So these are just general land use areas. It's not saying that these are the exact boundaries. It's just kind of showing some general areas and some general relationships of the different land uses. So this is the first one, which is option A. So there's actually two options for South Stoner Prairie. I'll just point out a couple of things here. This one has high density residential on where Commerce Park would come through. And this one is showing the school. Verona School District has indicated to us that they would have some interest in potentially a school in this neighborhood if there was a significant enough of households and rooftops, so to speak, to support an elementary school, for example. So this one is showing a lot of housing. This is the same housing that's already been and has some initial approvals. That's Payne and Dolan. You can see the park space and kind of how the potential roadway patterns could go. Showing a little bit lower densities to the south here. And then these would be some neighborhood mixed use, which would have some commercial with it.
Deanna, what's the southern border?
The southern,
right?
what's that?
What's the border on the bottom?
Grandview is gonna be right about down in here,
Okay.
yeah.
Somewhere where the black line is.
Our plans don't go all the way down to Grandview.
They go to, it looks like on there, they go south of Tonto Drive too.
Yes, I think this is Tonto, right here. You can see Tonto, so, I can bring it up. I know this is, yes, we didn't do real great on our land use map, but, let me just go get my future. This is the general area, and orange is our general area. So here's Tonto, so we come about down to that 40 line here, in our planning documents. So these are just kind of these are our initial discussion points, right? There's kind of looking at a mix, this one has more housing, right? It has a school. Our option
On
B,
the school
Yeah.
site.
Yeah.
If Verona chose not to, could that be a private school or some daycare or?
certainly, yep, there's not like any particular plans, but it could be an institutional use. It could be a daycare, a church, maybe.
Well, if you have that much housing, certainly some sort of childcare would fit.
Well, yeah, wasn't there talk of elementary school over off of Whalen in Fitchburg?
Yeah,
At
I
one time?
think,
I was just wondering if that
yeah,
conversation.
I think the Verona School District, they have had, I think they might still have, an option on the Jenny property down here.
I know they
But
did
that
one-
might be changing.
They did at one time, but when
Yeah, but
the
Now they bought
Macy
these two.
property, I think that ended.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the current status on the options on the Jenny, but now the school district has bought these two parcels for a future high school.
And those were both,
For high school
yeah, those were both Lacey parcels, were they not?
though. Yeah, I was thinking the other one on Whalen was more elementary. I didn't know what the conversation was about.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of background.
Could have been either, I suppose.
Sure.
But either,
Yeah.
Very good.
So option B takes out the school, but puts in the business park, right? Coming down off of Commerce. So it would be more of a continuation of Sub-Zero, what Promega has. I don't think the city's interested in having any heavy industry here, right? But I think having more of that kind of light manufacturing, research, high-tech kind of uses.
That would come in more later after the quarry is pretty
Yeah.
much expired there.
Mhm.
Pretty much, they have a certain period of time to
Yeah.
get their quarrying done.
Yeah, right now, they're on a conditional use, but you all approved
Right.
last year for 5 years.
I think that's what I remembered was 5 years. And they'll probably make that.
You think so? I hope so.
It's a lot of gravel piled up there, but
They're
yeah.
moving stuff out of there.
They're a big operation.
Yep, so this one kind of reworks the, all low-density housing kind of to the southern portion of it. This one is showing changing this intersection to a neighborhood mixed use, right? So you have the Quarry Vista neighborhood up here, and then you have the apartments on the corner, so this one is saying, well, maybe we should rethink that corner for something a little bit more intensive use. My planning hat thinks there's some interest here because, thinking about the future and having the potential of maybe a transit line down Lacey, it's good to concentrate some of that higher densities along those corridors.
Was there quite a bit of pushback from the neighbors in Hammersley to the north about that particular zoning use?
We're not really even talking about zoning or anything. I think Quarry Vista, the conversations that I've been party to, and I haven't of course, been party to all of them. They're very concerned about parks and open space, trail linkages. And also, there's also interest in having some of those resources like a coffee shop or something nearby, right? So I'm open to take any comments on those two. Otherwise, of course, it's in your packet, and you can always write me up some comments and thoughts. The next step is what we're gonna go into some more further refinements, and the bubbles will kind of get more refined into actual land use areas and start showing where some potential roads can actually go. Then we'll start looking at, infrastructure and sewer and water and stormwater and how all of those pieces start fitting together, so. Yeah.
I know when, there was a discussion about rezoning or whatever, the Corey Vista area,
Yep.
closer to it.
Mm-hmm.
The neighborhood seemed quite interested in having the continuation of a wildlife corridor then
You're
through South Stoner, so doesn't look like the second option does that. I don't recall the first. Oh, I guess neither, huh?
Well, I like I said, I think you have to be kind of careful with these, because these are just kind of bubbles
Yeah.
to kind of look at concentrations of potential land use, but that doesn't mean we can't, start creating those corridors and linking our bubbles kind of together. This is kind of an exercise to kind of understand, how much low density compared to high density? Do we want a school, right? It's kind of beginning to weigh some of those differences in a broader, we'll get there. But it's a good point, yeah.
Any comments on this? This particular one, I think is overwhelming with, many different venues. The park there, that 30 acres there, that's a ridge.
Mhm.
And I understand that's going to stay as natural wildlife or park area.
Probably.
It's a undeveloped type of a part of the property. But this just seems overwhelming to me. The second one, the other one, I think makes a lot of sense to me. You've got where the quarry is, and that is supposed to be a business park. That ties in with Sub-Zero right across the road. And then the other thing I like about this one is, see all the low density down at the bottom there? The low density is going to be, or my understanding could be, residential homes that'll tie in to the type of viewscape that you're looking to the south, which is open agricultural land. This will allow that type of transition a lot easier than if we have a higher density or some other density other than that in the lower part to the south. So basically, this one seems a lot simpler, and I think it's got, at least as I see, those two things along with the park that's at 25 acres up there. I think it fits in with everything that's above Lacey, and I think the lower part fits in with the landscape from the south.
Also on that, 115 acres of business, connected to open space, there could be an adjustment in there either way for your wildlife corridor.
Awesome.
I don't see it as, being it's in these bubbles, it's not anywhere near, like Deanna was saying, down to roads and streets yet.
But you still have some adjustment that could be done.
Yeah, I have a question about that, as long as you're looking at that business, the 115 acres across Lacey Road there, that's between there and Promega. What is that scheduled for? I mean, this is on the north side of Lacey.
Oh. I mean, I don't think there's any, they haven't submitted the next steps for like rezoning or planning documents at this point. So
Yeah, I was just curious.
I
as
don't
to-
know that there's a
You know, there's a-
set timeline, right?
Yeah, I didn't know who owned that, if that's part of Promega or if it's,
So, so this is under Payne and Dolan. I'm sorry, these two parcels are Payne and Dolan.
Right.
And then this parcel is Sub-Zero. And this is Promega.
okay, yeah, that's,
I thought
that's,
I bought that. Oh,
yeah, that's the part I was looking at
Right
right
there.
there. that-
Yeah, this one is Promega.
I thought they had bought that all the way out the road.
All the way to Lacey?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this is
wasn't sure.
Promega right here. So,
So they got room to expand right there as far as business.
Yeah. I guess, you know, what we're looking really, really long-term, right? No, this isn't gonna be developed probably in 5 years. We're probably looking at 10 or more years on this.
Goes fast.
It was quicker than we imagined.
Yep, I hear ya. So, let me jump into, Greenfield, unless there's any other comments here.
There was only the two plants.
Yeah, I just had those, there was only the 2 drafts. For Greenfield, I'll walk through 3, we had 3 bubble diagrams for Greenfield, but in Greenfield, I wanna spend a little bit of time, I'm not gonna go through all these slides because you guys don't wanna be here, but, there is something I do wanna talk about in here.
There's your bubble diagrams.
Yeah, it is. I want to talk about this idea of neighborhoods. So, this idea of housing, mixed-use neighborhood built into or integrated into a working farm.
Or farms.
Or farms, yep. So, I think, I'm bringing this because you guys are the committee, you know, to kind of explore this idea. And what I would like to explore with you all is, you know, as farmers, does this make sense, right? Can this work, this idea of an neighborhood that would be single-family, multifamily, mixed use, that is integrated into a working farm or farms, as kind of a concept for development, right? So here's another way to look at it, having a working farm, but clustering the housing so that you can maintain more agriculture and open space versus a more typical subdivision that just subdivides all the land. Does that kind of make sense? So be clustering the same amount of housing, 100 homes on smaller lots and clustering them and then leaving the rest for open space and maybe farms or community gardens, right?
Well, what's the committee's thought?
I would say, on a smaller scale, more like a neighborhood co-op. But as far as dividing up a lot of large agricultural acreage, that's gonna be farmed a lot different with equipment. And this would be quite different as far as, you know, more like an organic operation or and I don't know, if it just seems like there could be conflicts. If it's managed right, it could be done right too, or done well. But as far as the large farm acreage, I think we also have to respect that too, as we grow.
Yeah, Shelley, any thoughts?
Well, not being a farmer, I think the neighborhood concept is a good compromise, maintaining some of the open agricultural space, but then getting needed housing. But
Amy's gonna zoom in.
But George's point was,
She's gonna try. I'm sorry.
no, that's okay.
I got it,
But
these guys know.
obviously, I just learned something about, you know, you need a certain amount of space for agricultural land, for certain agricultural uses. I mean, it might be too small.
Stop what you're
Community gardens and not quite the agriculture that is now. But I like the concept of having homes and sharing agricultural space and purpose perhaps.
Roger.
Sorry, guys, I'm gonna have to interrupt here a little bit so we can get Amy in.
Roger, what's your thoughts?
I'm definitely in favor of the agricultural integration, such as George has talked here. I think the field can be made to where heavy equipment, bigger equipment can work. If you drive through Middleton, which I'm doing quite a bit right now on a daily basis, this, what we're talking about, I see it all the time. I see, 60, 70, 80 acre fields, 40 acres fields, right up against this type of residential. Works very well, very well. In my mind, that's well designed, and I think that can be done here too.
I don't believe that they designed it that way. I think that's the way this is a little different concept. The development kind of came out to the edge and there's farms on the edge, if it's the place I'm thinking of.
Along like Grandview? On the west edge of development in Middleton, or Grandview, Grandview, what am I thinking of?
Well, there's, I say if you go down Mineral Point Road,
Yeah,
you'll see a lot of this. But my point being is that as explained there on the typical agri-hood, it can be done. No question about it, it can be done. And I think it has certainly should go towards that.
yeah, I think there's definitely places for that,
Yeah.
but it's not everywhere as we grow. And also, we've always been talking about, processing food, a place to process it. Or like I see on here on a different slide, we're along the corridor for access for trucks or equipment, or, if you're gonna sell any sell any products, you've gotta have a way to, you don't wanna have a conflict with trying to get the products out for market. That could be an
Yeah.
issue. I think the whole thing is how it's drawn up and how it's managed is huge. Because you wouldn't wanna try something and have it fail.
You got a good point.
In a situation like this,
Yeah, I think the point here is that when we go to design it, we design it with the idea that we're going to have large or middle scale agriculture tied to it. With
Large
yeah, well, I'm talking, 100 acres, 150 acre units. But we have to make sure it's accessible. That it has to be accessible to traffic becomes an issue. In and out of fields. I'm not concerned about the dust or the noise because you have the land use rule
Right to
in there
farm.
that'll apply here. But that will have to be something very, very important when they start to design it.
Is the intention that it's just homes that happen to be near the agricultural land, or the people who live in the homes are actually doing some of the farming or gardening? If it's the latter, I think that's a
It could be
really cool
both.
concept.
Like this one on the left, you have some multi-units, so you can have some high density for, ag workers, or it could be, whereas it seemed like the one on the right is a lot of single-family homes with
Yeah,
larger.
yeah, the one on the right is
lots.
just your
It's just a
typical.
development.
Yeah,
Is the Deanna concept of an agrihood that the people who live there are actually the ones who are farming the land?
No.
No.
I think there's a
Possibly.
potential there, but I think the idea would be that some of them might, if you could focus it around community gardens, I mean, I think, but I guess what I'm wondering, you know, what is a minimum size acre field? Does it make sense to bring equipment in, right?
30?
You know, so like
less-
here's
it just
100
depends.
acres, right? And there's 80 acres of open space and, you know, what is reasonable?
Well, let me explain it this way. If you're looking at a cash crop operation, those small fields are paying for them. But if you're looking for, you know, hay fields then the 10 to 30 acres work well. So let's say if that agrihood is a horse facility, for example, even though in the city of Fitchburg, horses are not considered agriculture, just so we're clear on that. And whether you think it should be or shouldn't be, but right now it's not.
To operate a
Unless-
stable,
Unless.
and if you operate stables, you can do it in agricultural zoning, but you need a conditional use permit.
But if you're breeding horses, it's agriculture.
And if you have your own horses on your own farm, I mean, then it's fine.
Yep.
It's
But if you are, it's considered more, what's the term? It's not a conditional, it's considered, it's not full-scale agriculture. But that's not the subject here. So someone in one of those houses wanted to have a horse, for example, that kept on the agrihood part of that. That's really what this is designed for.
Yeah, I can see could be a possibility to have that kind of.
And so, that some of this is gonna work, it's gonna work very well. And this is something one of our former zoning employees always was a proponent of, Wade was the vegetable operation, and if you go to the eastern part of our country, everybody is pretty familiar where Sandy Hook. My sister-in-law's mother taught at Sandy Hook. And she spent her whole career there and had a 40-acre farm half a block down the street. That is an agriculture zone piece of property, and it's in vegetables. And it still is in vegetables. And so that works very well with something like this.
Okay.
well, it can also make a difference too, the type of location as far as hills or soil
Topography.
types.
So
You know, there may be ideal situations for, small plots.
Well, you also could have, if you think out of the box a little bit, you could have some grape production, you could have some
Right,
things like
and
that.
it seems like with construction, with home building, you can almost put a house anywhere. Well, you can't really put a farm just anywhere.
True.
But soil,
But that being said,
not improve the soil, but
I think as we go forward into this, we have to understand that there is a conflict, or a potential conflict, for the agriculture and the residential.
Yeah.
The vegetables work really fine. Pig farm might not be as welcome.
right,
It just depends on, so we're having to be very, very, very clear on what the residential part of that going in there, that they understand through the deed restriction than what they're buying into. Because we gotta look at more than just the initial, we gotta look at down the road when that changes hands 2 or 3 times. So, I mean, we certainly can do that with some deed we have the right to farm
Mhm.
and we can enhance that.
You certainly could.
So we just have to be aware of it.
Yeah, I think we learned like with the O'Brien farm when they had the conflict with the dairy farm and the manure pit right across from the school. And the kids came out of the school and said, oh, I can't stand this, every day it smells like
Dairy
this, Mom. You know, when they were being picked up. And that was but that was a larger scale dairy farm with a manure pit next to it. But still, people don't like that if you were to, do something next to their home with spreading something you didn't like and then before you got it tilled in.
Well, that always is an issue, and I know it's an issue over by the Madison Metropolitan Sewer District area.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think what I'm hearing from you all, it's a possible idea for green.
I would agree.
It just is gonna depend on the design and execution.
Yeah, that's gonna be critical.
Is that fair?
Very carefully.
Let's work through the 3 options here for Greenfield. This one kind of has the largest open space to the north. This one is showing some higher density housing in this corridor along 14, and then some medium density, low density, and then that idea of the agri-hood down here to the south. These are bubble diagrams, once again. This isn't saying this goes here, but it's kind of looking at the general relationships, right? And the general amounts of different types of these land uses.
Where the open space OS at the bottom, I assume that's open space.
Yep.
It's hard for me to see it.
Yep, that one,
Is that,
here's Burn Road.
that was my question, is that where is Burn Road?
The thicker red line is Burn Road, and that's Kane. And that's Irish, and that's Stein.
Okay.
So this one isn't showing any kind of interchange or anything. And then just keeping some of the higher density residential here with some neighborhood mixed use on the corner of Irish and Stein. This one is our option B. This one puts in the business park and a potential interchange at Irish, with the idea that potentially it could shift to the south and then connect to B down here, where the B intersects with MM there, if you all recall.
Yep.
So this one skinnies up the open space a little bit more. We kind of showed a little bit connection here from Nobel across the Stoneman's farm and then down onto Kane, showing the agri-hood, maybe a little bit actual residential down here on the southwest, a little bit more neighborhood mixed use. But I think the big feature here is the potential interchange at Irish, and then a business park that would have Blaney Road come and connect down to maybe just kind of ending in here. So that's our option B. And then this one, we have one more. We did 3 options for Greenfield in this case. The business part got a little bit smaller, but in this case, we're showing a potential interchange a little bit to the north. This one's tricky. Here is this is Mant. This is the Mant farm right here in Irish. And then this is where the solar farm went in last year, here on Irish. And you can see the houses, and then Elm is right over here.
Okay.
Right. So then maybe connecting Blaney Road back up, smaller business park, neighborhood, maybe a little bit more higher density here, and maybe some density, a little bit more housing down here. So I don't mean to thoroughly overwhelm you, but,
No,
and like I said, you can always send comments to me via email, but, all right, guys.
What is the schedule with that, the Blaney farm where?
Oh, yeah, so right now, I can give you an update on where we're at, on the Blaney farm. As far as I know, Blaney will continue to, operate on their seed facilities for the foreseeable future. Plan Commission will consider townhomes on this lot, and this lot. Of course, this apartment building is under construction. And then, these two will probably go, maybe start next year on this one and the following year on this one. Those are big apartment complexes.
Does Blaney Road move to the roundabout?
Yeah, Blaney Road, yes, it does. So here's the existing Blaney Road. This will be the new Blaney Road. And right now, it's just a cul-de-sac, but it certainly could, what we've been considering is the potential of bringing it across the wetlands here and connecting it down.
You have some pretty heavy-duty wetlands
I know we do.
up there, and I'm just surely amazed that there was no pushback as there was when we did Terra Vesa. We were gonna ruin Lake Wabesa, if you remember the meetings.
I don't, of course, but,
If you viewed them, we were gonna ruin Lake Wabesa. And they brought lots of people in, supporting that if we put Terra Vesa in, and that, of course, was not what happened. And when this development is going in now, to my knowledge, we've not heard anything from those people. So that's quite interesting to me.
it's on the other side of 14.
Same watershed,
It is, you are correct, sir.
same watershed.
What are the plans to the east part of that?
Yeah, well, Business Park is here, but, they haven't platted this yet. There's no immediate plans. This isn't gonna have sewer until, this interceptor goes in. So this isn't sewered right now.
Which interceptor are you referring to?
Sain,
Extending Sain?
yeah. I can't remember, there's something, they have to build some infrastructure in here. I probably should not overstep my bounds, but, yeah.
Because that will tie easily into the existing, or the existing gravity main that's along the tracks now.
But I guess my question there would be, did you say that was gonna be more business?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I thought,
Yep. This area has already been,
So
yes, it does have zoning, for Business Park, you are correct. It has its GIP zoning for Business Park. So, happy to, wrong one. Happy to talk through any of these options or. Amy, do you have any, can you see everything okay?
Can you repeat that question, Deanna? I heard you say Amy and then.
Right, I just was wondering if you could see the slides okay, see the visuals first.
No, I can't. The screen is like only providing like the very top of your computer, so I can see like only the tabs that are open.
Okay, I apologize.
That's okay. I didn't want to interrupt because it was a good conversation. So
Sorry about that. Can you, do you have anything, I don't want to leave you out, so,
I apologize for my
ignored, Amy.
tardiness, for starters. I don't feel ignored. I'm driving to City Hall right now.
Well, be careful.
So yeah, I know. I'm on the Bluetooth of my car.
Okay.
You're coming in clear.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, hands free.
Cool. There was some discussion of a future business park tying all the way into Oregon. Of course, it can't tie directly into Oregon because south of Burn Road is a huge wetland. So it would have to go out Burn Road to to come back into that area around the wetlands.
Yeah, we certainly have our future urban development areas, right? So right now, staff's working on the Greenfield neighborhood plan. We have then the 3 different future neighborhood plans on the east side of 14. And then this would probably be treated jointly in terms of design with Oregon, if we ever got to that kind of point, at some point, I guess.
Yeah, that's, we're,
Does this Oregon School District have an option?
They own it.
They own it.
They own it, yeah.
They bought it all.
They bought this, and this is still lease, but they did buy that one.
I don't know what their timeline is for use.
Definitely not in the next 5 years.
Yeah,
It's definitely
no, I
about
think it's
30.
within 20 years is what I was
It's
told.
certainly much longer term, so.
What's the,
They may do some athletic fields in that area, but that would be,
What you got?
that would be in open space area.
I'm looking at the next timeline of decision-making with Greenfield. What's the schedule?
I have that for you. That's a very good question. April 22nd at 5:30, there's a neighborhood meeting scheduled.
Here at City Hall?
I don't have a room right at
Yeah.
this minute. But April 22nd at 5:30, and then we tentatively have a Greenfield open house on May 7th at 5:30.
27, you said.
We'll send emails to you.
27. 427 and 5.
4/22nd, 4/22, and then 5/7.
So after 5/7, what goes then? Do they divide,
Well,
do they come up with a plan?
We will probably be refined back into a pretty solid plan of some sort. Right now, I'm not gonna unveil, but we have some further refinements. The next step from here is some further refinements of these plans to actually look at actual land use areas and actual roadways, right? And how the pieces might start to fit. And then it'll be a process of refining. We'll look at utilities, stormwater, what it's gonna take to make something work.
And that was part of the planning process.
Yes.
Timeline process. And the big factor, I mean, we can plan all we want, but the big factor is without willing sellers, it's not gonna change a lot.
This is true.
We had a question from the audience.
I was
Mr.
told by 5 people, Greenfield was not gonna be, this is the package and that's it. You guys are gonna pick it and that's it. And it wasn't supposed to be until November.
Well, that's when
The Greenfield project was not supposed to have, okay, we're gonna do this, A, B, or C, we're gonna do whatever, A or B or whatever. And the last 2 meetings, they're pushing it so stinking fast that I don't know why. Because there's a lot of questions, there's stuff up there that, no, you guys, even in a 20-year project, you don't do a 20-year project in less 6 to 8 months. It takes time. But this is going through awful fast. I was at Stoner Prairie now, the 3 meetings. And it's just astronomical how fast they're moving. And both times they have not given me answers because they don't have them. But they were gonna, Stoner Prairie's going forward. They don't have answers. And
Well, I look at these meetings that we're talking about, the neighborhood meetings,
yeah,
is strictly information meetings.
yeah.
Because
Well,
they're not final, even close to final design, and it goes on here for a whole nother month. And that was my question of what's the time frame?
Yeah.
What's the time frame? And even though we're looking at the last neighborhood meeting where, we all can go
yeah.
and talk.
Oh, I don't think that's gonna be the last neighborhood meeting
No, it's
at
not
all.
gonna be, it's gonna go
No.
on and on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't, these are not,
But the other thing I was gonna say, I live on the corner of Sain and Arch Lane. The amount of people that have gardens, that whole corner has gardens. I got 2 acres, and I got a 1/4 acre in the middle of my property, that's all garden. Apple orchard to the backside, all the way up to the park. And back when Bill Stoneman was the assessor, him and whoever was mayor, I was rural agricultural. Only because, I can mow my property in a half hour for 2 acres, which means I don't have, very much. But Greenfield, the average household, the houses there, they have gardens in the back. The guy across the road with 5 acres, he has a big long one. So Greenfield is more or less people that are, homesteaders, they like to grow their own food. So that one picture that showed, with people with,
Neighborhood.
egg neighborhood. But the guy across the road, 5 acres, he could have bigger garden and he could have a bigger tractor and stuff. So anybody that has 5 acres or more, in my thinking, is a, and there are people that have, big land, big pieces of land that they mow, but there's a lot of them that have gardens. And you go down Sain, and then there, the guy just, as you get down past Arch Lane to the right, he has a very big garden and, and stuff, but that's just my point. Thank you.
Well, I think to your point, a lot of people that want a large lot, they want that lot for the purpose of being able to have a nice garden. You can understand that. I think though, like Mark said, though, a lot of this is as far, it's there isn't really a schedule, it's on willing buyer and willing seller. If there's demand and there's a good enough plan that someone wants to, put some input in that plan or a group, then it moves forward, but.
And there is always the potential that if there's a willing seller that it could be sold for agricultural land also.
Right, and right now the market is, there's no real certainty on which way it's going.
And I hope that the council and the planning department look at redeveloping. We can accommodate the growth by redeveloping some of the 1970s vintage apartments that we have that are very tired. And we have people that in this community that do that all over the country, so we certainly have the knowledge base here, if we so choose to ask them for the help, of which they've already offered.
I've got a question. Is this Greenfield project work into rural clusters? as a form of development?
You know, you have the rural cluster agricultural zoning ordinance on the books. And to my knowledge, it hasn't been used.
Correct.
My thinking is that if we proceed with the agrihood idea, we have a good start there, but we'll probably need something more robust to manage it.
A perfect spot for, we've said this before, you and I've talked about this, Roger, is down by Barry's up in,
Briarwood.
an extension of that north into the wooded area for a cluster would be the least invasive for any agricultural land and would fit well. Was the owners would have to come forward for that. Because there was 3 different spots that were talked about. There was one in Oak Hall, one at Lake View, and one and then that one at Briarwood. When we originally did that cluster development, that was the 3 that were talked about. Potential possibilities, anyway. Anything else on, Deanna, do you have anything else for us?
I don't think on that, and as I said, I'll take comments. The bubble diagrams are in your packet, and I'll take any comments or questions. Feel free to email me. The next thing I wanted to just briefly talk about is the exclusive agricultural zoning ordinance. We are due for a reapproval or recertification of our ag zoning, our exclusive ag zoning, this year. So there's some things that, you know, what I've attached in your packet is number 1, our ordinance, our current zoning ordinance is in your packet. So I can bring it up. This is what our current exclusive agricultural district zoning ordinance is. And then I've also attached Dane County's zoning ordinance, just as kind of a reference. Our current zoning ordinance is certified. I'm sure we can bring it forward and get it certified again by the state. But this is an opportunity, if there's some interest in making some amendments to our current ordinance, this is an opportunity for you all to consider that. The thing that has come up and that I have just some concerns is the idea of a new farmstead on a 35-acre parcel. I think we're seeing the beginning of more interest in bringing something forward to that. Right now, there isn't any standards that come with that in terms of location or siting of a home on that 35 acres. And I think it's something that the committee might want to give some consideration to.
What's the county and county or state laws on that 35 acre?
There's no requirement.
Okay.
You, in exclusive ag, the city does not have to permit non-agricultural homes.
That wasn't my question. My question was, are we in conflict? So if we wanna take and restrict that 35 acre and above parcels, where do we fall?
My interpretation is you are not required to allow a new farmstead on every 35 acres.
But I think what he's asking is there any county or state like rules, regulations, or limitations to doing that? To putting
You allow it right now.
in Fitchburg.
Yeah.
does the Dane County or the state of Wisconsin say we shouldn't do it?
No.
Then we shouldn't do anything with it.
Well, I don't agree. We're opening up a can of worms here. You're gonna go clear against everything we've worked so hard for over the last 10 years. And that is to have organized rural development. Now correct me wrong, I may be wrong, but if you have a minimum size of 35 acres under the standard dimensions of this deal, what's to stop you from putting a house out in the middle of the 35 acres?
Here's my thought, Roger. You want 35 acres of apartments, or do you want 35 acres with one home that somebody's farming 39.5 of those acres? 34.5.
I don't follow you.
Putting a home on a 35 acre parcel is securing it as agricultural land.
Oh, I don't have any
Greenfield
problem with
neighborhood
that.
knocks on
I
your
don't have any
door.
problem with that, but we need to make sure that the person puts it on that 35 acres in the right place. And we have in our rural residential criteria to say, yeah, if you want 35 acres, that's fine, but here's some of the restrictions we got. The way it is right now, you can put it any place on that 35 acres and that defeats everything we've done.
I think the one that came before us was very responsible with where they located it. I mean, that seems like shooting your foot off by putting your home in the middle of your plot. How are you gonna farm around it if you're
Well,
not responsible?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right?
You're putting it up to the
farm?
discretion of the owner, and that discretion may not agree with what we're talking about, and
When we,
We did the rural residential criteria with 11, it was 14 and we reduced it to 11.
Correct.
Circumstances.
wasn't part of that, and some of us were here, wasn't part of that to allow the farmer to, a son or daughter, to build a house on an acre, a minimum of an acre parcel. So they could sell that to the son or daughter, and it fits in within the financial world as far as under 10 acres, because over 10 acres you can't get loans. Certain financials can do the loans over 10 acres. And wasn't it our intention that we wouldn't burden that farmer, make it affordable so that he could sell that acre or acre and a half to a son or daughter-in-law, and keep the agricultural part of it farmable.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hindrance of using the claim, but
No,
on an acre right now.
What part of that is to keep the costs low enough. The 1 acre parcel, or the acre and a half, or even, there's some parameters on the acreage, but that kept it reasonable enough so that son or daughter could buy that land.
sure.
With the case of Mance, which was just a case where he purchased, and he had to buy the whole 35 acres, it was more reasonable for him.
Didn't he?
To do a land
Did
He
division.
used a
Didn't he
claim.
use
He used
the,
to claim, but he purchased,
but he didn't use the RDC on that?
yes, he did.
Okay, so.
But
why
did he,
can't
but
you-
you're missing my point, Roger. The financial impact to Chad, buying that acre and a half versus having to buy 35, is my point.
Well, I mean, no, I don't think anybody's willing to get rid of the claim system. That would
No,
probably.
I'm not talking about that at all. I'm just talking about that
Why it
when
was
we,
created,
when
why
we,
you
when we
created
did
that
this,
RR.
the financial impact and the ability for that, we'll use Chad for an example, to be able to get a reasonable loan, because the acreage makes a difference. On certain, some financials can't do a loan on over 10 acres.
Yeah, well, and I think the claims were also put into place to allow the rural cluster,
Yep.
right?
And you
That
can
was the
move,
intent,
you
also
can move a
the
claim,
intent
of
of,
which they did.
don't put a house out in the middle of a
So
field and
where do we-
best ag land.
Yeah.
That was,
I mean, what's
So
the, where,
if we say, okay, you can't use 37 acres, because time you take your right of ways and now, you're talking 37 acres, so we're gonna restrict that. We're gonna create an ordinance saying that we have to follow the UDC on that, so are we gonna do that on all land? So if a person buys 80 acres, are they gonna have to come to us for a siting? Or 120, are they gonna have to come to us for siting?
there's not even gonna be any farmland left in Fitchburg to worry about this. We're building solar fields or whatever those are, solar units. And now we're talking about building houses in the Greenfield neighborhood. Like, what, do we have any worries? Like, what farmland is even gonna be left? Like, how many circumstances are there?
35 acre parcels will be
Is
left.
there 10 at most,
Probably
Mark?
they'll be left, because if someone's gonna invest that much. But we have to make sure that we, when we talked about the 1 and 2 acre parcels we were talking about keeping the agricultural land usable for that farmer.
Yes.
Still allowing him to sell his daughter or his son an acre, acre and a half, so they would be close and maybe be part of
yeah,
their.
it's designed to
They did that.
restrict, it's designed to restrict what you're talking about,
It is.
with growth.
Mhm.
But it's allowing some development, some use of splits
For the family.
for family, but also family can sell them or,
That did happen and
Yeah.
it does happen.
But if they fall under this particular criterion of the 30, so you have 35 acres, you're only allowed one homestead on it. But if I have 35 acres and I use the RR code, I can put maybe, if my family has 3 splits, I could do that 3 times,
no,
potentially?
no.
Okay. What if I
That's-
buy them and
unless you-
transfer them?
Unless she went into the rural
I could buy them and
cluster,
transfer
but
them.
that would be a.
Yeah, you'd have to be in rural cluster, so if you're in one of the future land use areas, each farm can only use one of their
But if
claims,
you're not,
and then you can only use 2.
then you can use 2.
Exactly.
All the other claims have to
So if
wait
you're- if you're-
for rural cluster.
And that's my point. So we could end up with 1 home on 35 or 2.
Because our situation, when the rural cluster ordinance with Sean Paff, when he was mayor, when that was approved, well, we transferred the 5 claims, but we can only use 2.
That's right, each farm can only
Unless you
use
create a
2.
cluster.
Right, unless we create a cluster, which we have no plans on doing anything with it. But yet, we have some that we would sell within Fitchburg. Now,
Now, Amy's
Where's the market?
property, for example, is not in a future development area.
Which is a great thing for everyone
So
involved.
They could use 2.
Trust me.
They're not in a FUNA, they can use
They
2.
could use 2. How does a person get out of a FUNA?
how does a person get out of what?
I don't know.
Right.
That is, you
I
know,
mean, that was adopted in what, 6 or
but
2006?
stop and think about
I
that.
mean,
That's a
it-
financial impact on
it is. Well, I guess
a farmer.
what you would have to figure out, I guess, I'm sure you could, it would be basically an amendment to the comp plan, because it lives in the comp plan.
When will we be amending the comp plan?
Mayor wants to start, or late this
Because I
year.
thought that was coming.
Yeah, Mayor wants to
Yeah,
start.
let's get back to the 35 acres as we're saying here. Your question was, it's standalone there with no definition. What do we want to do about that?
Well, I mean, you all will have to, what that means is, so the claims were assigned based on the size of the farm, right? So some farms got, I think there's a couple of them out there, like 7.
It was based way back.
Yeah, It was,
86
and so what this means is that essentially everybody will have those additional claims with it. If they have the 35 acres in X, right? They have to have the 35 acres available in AX.
35 clean
Or
acres.
or AT, because you can't build on AS, right?
Right.
And that wouldn't fall under this.
Well, on
anyway.
35 acres of AX land,
Or
for
18.
35 clean acres, that's after your right of way is out.
Sure.
You can put one house.
Yes. Plus whatever claims you have assigned.
As
to
long
have
as
done.
the parcel, if you have a large parcel, you cannot make a remaining parcel non-conforming.
No, you cannot.
So if you take 35 acres out, there has to be more than 35 left.
Otherwise, you're gonna have to rezone it out. And I'm not going to allow you to rezone it out to something that inconsistent with the comp plan. So like, for example, this was lease, right? And lease wanted to subdivide off the farm buildings, right?
Exactly.
So, as soon as they went into the subdivision, they had to have 35 acres.
Yep.
For AX, and then we had to take this to AS, and then we just did this in RR,
Yep, I'm familiar with that parcel.
so,
That's the house, that's the farm that had
Yeah.
the fire.
yeah, it is you're right, it is, yeah.
And then I think he has 3 splits or 2.
I think there's 3 splits on here, but you can only
Plus
use the 2.
Yeah, plus,
He's actually not in a FUDA.
right. So he could use 2. But the existing house doesn't count.
No.
Right, that's an existing house. And even if they replace that existing house, it's still.
No, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can replace the farmhouse all you want.
I'm sure he'll be in, because they're looking at what they're gonna do with that.
Yeah, I know that they were kind of talking about maybe subdividing a little bit more.
Right.
Which might make complete sense for them down there.
For that down there, there's not much left. And the ag land is in the green, so, and that was sold. And that
Yes.
stays same.
So maybe that kind of explains what that looks like.
So is our concern on this 35 parcel then the location of the house? Is that our concern? We wanna have.
Yeah, that's where the RRDC comes in.
Yeah.
Well,
On the 35 acre thing right now, the RRDC doesn't apply.
so.
So basically,
should
so
it-
actually, right now, if they've got the 35 acres, they can just come and pull a building permit.
Yeah.
They don't have to come to you guys, they don't have to go to the planning
Exactly.
commission, they just come and
Yeah.
build it.
You're correct.
And I don't have any control of where they put the house.
And whether it's 35 or whether it's
105.
Yeah.
105, or we wouldn't have any control.
We wouldn't have. I'd basically have to sign off on a building permit.
So, I don't have a problem. I think we'll have very few. You have the potential for a handful in the whole city. But I don't have a problem with what we have. But it's up to, I'm only one of the committee, and I don't get to vote unless there's a tie, so.
I have no issue with it. I mean, I have zero interest in restricting anything that someone who owns farmland can do with their farmland. I just feel that we need to empower.
Certainly rather see one house on 35 than 35 acres of apartments.
It's gonna be tricky, where it's gonna be tricky in my world is if they still have a claim and then they wanna come back. And I've written a building permit on the 35 acres and wanna come back and use a claim.
That's an interesting.
But under
Fine.
what circumstance then could they use that claim?
I mean, if they have a claim that they are available to use. I'm thinking of like the Gormans, right? They don't actually have another claim on that land right now. they could certainly transfer, but,
one to the other piece.
yeah, but where I'm gonna have a problem, and I don't think I really can do anything, because if they wanna subdivide out of that 35, they already have the farmhouse that we signed off on, and then they're gonna come back and say, well, we wanna use a claim on, create an acre and a half, it's gonna drop them below the 35 acre.
The original.
But wouldn't, I disagree with that,
I didn't think
because
that,
I don't think they can.
I don't know,
isn't that the
I mean,
minimum, like you have to have it?
You can't.
well, here's the deal, I don't know, so what I don't know, right? Because I don't know if I can deed restrict the property, right? Because can I tell them that house was approved, so in 10 years, I don't know if I'll be here, but in 10 years, the Gormans say, well, why can't we subdivide?
But does that not, by subdividing that, make that a non-conforming piece?
It does, but they'll say to me, other people will just rezone it to a whatever.
What would you, it's egg small is the only thing, you can't have a house on it.
Right.
I don't see that being
I don't see that working. Where I see it, a problem, is the 50-acre parcel. Where they put the farmstead on 50 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come into you and say, I want an acre and a half for my daughter or son. As
So,
long as they maintain 35.
As long as they maintain it.
yeah. That's pretty,
If they can't have it egg exclusive land unless they have a clean 35. So I don't
that's how
see
it's
it,
written, right?
I don't know, well,
I don't see that
I
as
mean,
addition.
technically, they could say to me, well, fine, I'll rezone it to rural residential. I mean, it'd have to come to you all, and we can say,
Wait a
no,
minute.
we're not going to, but,
What did you say about AS?
well, you can't do AS because there's no residential
There's no-
allowed
no.
in.
There's no, you can, that's your fallback zoning, as we just looked at
Right.
leased property. That's your fallback zoning, but there's no, you cannot have housing on egg small. You can have buildings, but you can't have.
Right.
It's like the vegetable garden.
Well, what are the, back to a split, what are the restrictions on a split? When, let's say that somebody has to go buy a split someplace. Well, you know,
To my knowledge, it has, the only time that you
Man.
all approved was man,
Yeah,
to
okay.
my knowledge.
okay, so Matt used one of the splits off the other farm. What is the restriction on that split?
As to who could buy, where they
Yeah,
could.
I mean, does that split have to stay in this case, in agriculture forever? When you buy a split or you identify a piece of property as a split, doesn't it lock in something to say that
Well,
you
I
can-
mean, it gets zoned to usually our residential.
It would come to us,
I mean,
moving a split, correct me if I'm wrong. In the case of Mance, they moved that from one of their other parcels. And then when it came to this committee, we looked at that parcel, for Chad's lot.
Yeah, well, it
And
fit,
then it went to plan commission, and
but it fit the RDC.
Why else would you transfer a split?
well, it would have, yes, you're correct, Roger, it would still have to, it would still have to fulfill that need. If you're transferring a split, you would still have to use the RDC,
Yeah, but,
yeah,
because you're not,
I think
you're
I
not
know
A1
where you're
exclusive.
going.
yeah, but
Tell us where you're going.
What I'm thinking of is when the split idea came in, one split for our RDC, for acre and a half, you gotta go have a split. Now, you either own a split or you go buy a split.
Okay,
The idea, if I recall, and correct me, I may be wrong, but that split, wherever it is supposed to be and preserve agriculture. That's the way we made sure that there was land out there that was going to stay in agriculture forever. I mean, Now,
Well,
if I recall, that was our thought, but I'm not sure that I know where that's in writing.
Well, I thought the other way, I
That's the
thought,
way we preserve agriculture.
That was before my time, I know that.
No, but that's the background to,
yeah, but isn't a split, I thought a split was
A split is a
a
building.
building right.
It's a building right.
Right.
yes.
And
It's not an agricultural
No,
piece.
no, it is a building right. You can't build unless you have a split.
right, but
But the
And that's the
split then,
35.
the split then is supposed to be preserved.
so in other
I
words,
don't understand the,
Okay.
Explain that.
Let's say that you wanna build a 1.5 acre RDC.
okay?
You don't own a split. I mean, you haven't got enough property to do it. So
Mance were an example of that.
So you go and you buy a split.
They didn't have to buy
No,
one,
but
they just moved their own.
He might have sold it for $1.
They didn't have to buy it, they moved their own. But they could have bought
Okay,
one.
let's not use the man. Go back to our RDC, 1.5 acres. Okay, you gotta go buy one of his splits.
Yeah.
Because you don't own it, you
Right.
just
Okay,
wanna live in the country.
yeah.
You buy-
Francesca Kane is an example of
You
it.
buy a split from him, and you're gonna pay whatever he wants to sell you that at.
And it could be anywhere.
Now it's on the record that his 35 acres has been used for this house.
So I keep records, so with Mant, they lost one of their 2 claims for buildable when they
Yes.
moved that, off that farm.
Yes.
I keep record of that.
But okay, down the road, 10 years from now, tell me, is that 35 acres preserved?
We're not talking 35.
Well, I do it by farm,
But
I do it by farm,
why
so.
can't they go sell that, okay, so.
So he only has one more claim on that farm that he can actually build.
I know, but the actual physical 35 acres that's sitting out here that has been sold.
And it has a claim on it.
No, the claim, the 35 acre claim.
Okay, they bought 35 acres, in order to build on it, they need to buy a split and move it over there.
Yes,
Okay.
but you don't physically move land, so
No,
what you do?
they moved that building right over here.
Oh, well, what we did too, we made them record in the
Deed restriction.
register of deeds who had the claim and where they went.
yeah,
Okay, but what is that, can somebody else come and do something with that physical 35 acres?
No, because you already have a house on it.
We used yours.
No, it's open field.
I think we're talking about 2 different
I'm
things.
Well,
confused.
I guess right now, Roger, the way that I understand it, it's just based on the farm. So we aren't saying that 35 acres of that portion of the farm. Right now, the way that at least my files are set up is just based on the farm.
But
So you're saying that
We-
35
we
acres is
sold-
eligible for a homestead still?
we sold the.
So they've transferred the split away, but
yeah,
since they have the 35,
Yeah, but-
they can put a home on it.
Splits.
Yeah,
I think that's accurate.
that's, yeah,
I think-
the point is that 35 acres out there stayed farmland.
Yeah, so we have splits to sell.
Well, there you go.
Since it's 35,
That's
if
the
we
way
have a
we
homestead.
that's the way we preserve farmland.
Yeah, we don't have an active market.
Farmland,
Yeah, the city
except for a
actually,
minus
you
little
know, signed
potential
a
area for the
document
house
when
then.
Well, the house is
And when we sold it to.
half a mile away.
Well,
The house is, the house.
Two different
you-
things.
I live in Madison, and I wanna live in Fitchburg, and I wanna build out in the country. And I see that, hey, there's a real residential criteria that I might get to 1.5 acres to build a house on. But it says I have to have a split. Okay, with me?
Okay?
So I go to you, and I says, do you have 35 acres that you'll sell me?
Not a chance.
Well,
Yes, I do,
Say
and not
yes
a
for the
chance.
hypothetical.
okay, well, I'll go to somebody, okay, then you're gonna do something. Okay, I'm gonna pay you $80,000 for your split, or $100,000 for your split.
Maybe
That's-
we
that's-
don't need it.
Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna find somebody, there'll be somebody out here.
Yes.
The concept was that in an area out here, that a farmer that had splits, that wasn't gonna be in the urban service area forever. How does that farmer out there, landowner, get part of the pie of Fitchburg development? He's got splits to sell, and they're $80,000.
Does,
And so
you have
now,
to have
what
those
happens
within the
is,
urban service?
I go over here to find
Well,
this guy.
I think I think
That
there's a
35
good,
acres
we don't
is
have that
supposed to
set
stay
up.
farm. That goes on the record as
Because
a
I-
restricted deed.
Roger, that 35 acres is a farm. So you came up from the town
Yeah,
and you bought 35 clean acres.
no, I didn't buy 35
He's
acres,
buying
I
a
buy an
split.
acre and a half.
No, but where did you come up with 35 acres?
I have to
You
go,
said you were gonna go to Amy and buy 35 acres,
I'm buying her split. She keeps it.
but you have to,
I might do that.
you have to have a place to move your split.
Okay, she's gonna move it, she's gonna, I have to, I
Right, well,
have,
right now, she can only sell two to build.
yeah, but
She can
she's got
only
one,
two.
she's got one out there to sell. Case in point, if you sell a farm today in Fitchburg and it has splits in it, those splits are worth big money in the real estate business right now.
That's why we
Except
kept.
you can't hardly use them.
But how do you?
Yes, you can, if I wanna come, if you have one and I wanna come and buy it.
Well, I mean, there's only a certain number of splits that right now that can be used outside of the urban service area. Each farm only gets one if you're in a
What
FUDA,
about-
and two if you're outside of the FUDA.
Well, what if I got 135 acres? I have more than one split.
You should have had one for every 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everything beyond the two has to go to rural residential cluster. You can't do
Oh,
that.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna find somebody that's got, I know he's got 2 out of 5 for sale. So I go to him.
I think
I go to him.
we don't, I
Now,
think
but
we
my
need a
point-
market.
my point is
But we
what-
need to have,
So you-
He
what,
can't come and use that, he can't use that.
what you guys need is a
100,000?
donor area, right? So,
Well, there's all over the place.
No, there's not.
I mean, a
No,
receiving
there's not.
area.
You can buy the split,
You can buy the split,
but you have to have land,
Someplace
you
to
have to
put
have
it.
land to move it to.
Roger, I'll sell you my split for 100,000.
I got it right here, I got my acre and a half, that's where I'm
No,
using
you
it.
have the right. You can buy the right to build,
Yeah, you can
That's
have the
correct.
right to build.
but you have to have a piece of land that has no split on it to move it there.
Oh, okay, I'll buy that, but I'm on the edge of a hill and I've only got, the guy had 5 acres and he's selling me an acre and a half.
Did you say you're on the edge of a hill?
And I gotta go find a split. I gotta go find a
So you-
split. I go to him and buy one of his
No,
2.
but let's go back a little bit. The 5 acre parcel you're talking about.
Yeah, but I'm gonna use only an acre and a half of it.
Well, but
I'm not buying the whole 5 acres.
what is that zoned?
AX.
So it's zoned AX,
5 acres.
Well,
okay,
it's-
It's possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so you,
This is a leftover.
so,
yeah,
yeah,
it's just part of a farm,
it's part of the farm.
okay?
So you would have to to rezone, you could buy your split, but you would have to rezone that 5 acres before you could use your split.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll rezone it.
Acre and a half.
I'll rezone it.
Maybe this committee won't let you,
Well, I'll take my chances.
okay?
But my point is, I'm concerned about that split that I just bought. Now, I bought the split, I didn't buy the land, didn't buy anything, but his 35 acres that he has identified that it qualifies me to build my house on an acre and a half. What I'm concerned about is that 35 acres. What can he do, or what can anybody do with that 35 acres,
Well, you
since
see-
it has been already dedicated to a house?
So you can
Well, no,
farm it?
you see, we sold,
You're not looking at
we
it.
sold the acreage and kept the splits off it, so it was deed restricted, the acreage that was sold.
Yes,
So there's that's deed restricted for no development.
that's what I'm after.
Yeah,
And that,
Is
in
it,
your case,
are
that's
your,
what
are
it
the
is.
splits that are so, is that split that Matt bought, or that they transferred, is that deed restricted?
We,
It is recorded.
that's not how it's set up right now, that's not
But
how,
you did
I-
record it.
we recorded where the splits go,
But
but the way that it's set up, at least in the files that I have inherited, is all of the farms out here have either one or two splits that can be used to actual build an acre or a half acre.
Okay,
So we're not saying whether or not this 35 acre has or not, right? We're not keeping track of those by 35 acres, we're keeping track of them by the farm. So,
Which was based on 35.
which
and
was
80.
based on the 35, but we're not saying that, well, Mant moved this 35 acre over to here, so now that one has, but what we are saying in our files is now Farm 31 only has one remaining split to build somewheres. So there's a certain number across the board in Fitchburg of claims that can be used somewheres.
and can those.
And the idea here, in my mind, was, well, we wanna keep those, and that's why I was quite supportive of this for Man, because it if we can kind of move these and move those claims to where there's already an existing house or next door to an existing 1 acre lot, that makes a lot of sense to me
Like
in terms of planning.
any options in the urban service area for those?
Well, there's no reason, I
I mean,
mean,
that
because
would be
in
a-
the urban service area,
Well, that would be something
You
that
would
probably
be-
a developer.
you wouldn't, part of this is to limit septic and well water.
go back to your example up there in number 31.
Yeah.
Okay, that one, okay, so now your records show that that farm is one split less. Okay.
To build on.
To build.
Mm-hmm, Yep.
Oh, to
That-
build on.
yep,
In other
that-
words, they
had
can't-
5.
They can't come in there and say, I wanna build on that, I'll go buy a split and come in. Is that state
I mean, they can-
agriculture forever?
Well, they can go buy a split,
And build
somebody
on it?
else's that they can use, right? So these farms have there's a lot of claims out there, but most of these can't be used. Each farm only has 1 or 2 that can be used. So right now, Farm 31 has lost one of them
So they have one less.
that they can use.
But that doesn't change the character of the land.
That's
It's
what I'm
its own-
after.
That's
That's
what
what
I
I'm
think
after.
Roger's wondering.
It doesn't, we're not keeping track of the claims by a piece of land, we're keeping track of the claim by farm.
Right, so you've lost a claim, so you've sold your claim so somebody can use it to build, but it doesn't mean that the
Land is-
character of that land
Yeah, the land is still
changed.
restricted
It's still
for
gonna be
ag only.
agriculture.
Yeah.
The land is
And forever?
it's zoning.
It's still zoned, I mean, we didn't
Zoned.
change any zoning there.
The land is zoned, so it's.
Okay, stays AX until somebody, but if somebody comes in there and wants to change it to AX to RRDC on that,
Well,
Piece of
that's
property,
possible,
and you have
but it's gotta
registered
go
as a
through all the
claim.
channels and.
oh, you don't have it identified, of where it is on the farm, it's just the farm.
Yeah, we just keep track, this is the spreadsheet, this is the magic spreadsheet, and everything is kept track
There's the
on by
key.
farm.
And there's
There's the
nothing
key.
Well, then it's
stopping from
magic,
having
yeah.
that
Yeah.
sold in some.
I'm trying to
This is it, right
I
here.
am too, but I think it's not real.
Well,
It's done very
and it's
well.
great, Roger. We different in how I'm trying to lock in farmland too, which is why I'm so opposed to the greenfield development plan. Because that takes a lot of agriculture out of, in the development land. And so philosophically, if you look at, do we wanna draw a line at some point in time and really get serious about agriculture in the city of Fitchburg, or do we not?
Well,
I think, I wasn't here, but I think that Tom envisioned the FUDAs as allowing that growth but protecting the other areas, right? I think
Yeah.
I think the idea was we wouldn't be growing outside of those FUDAs, right? We would direct the growth to the FUDAs, and it just so happened that right now Greenfield is kind of that next FUDA that was originally
If
identified.
one of the landowners decides to sell.
Yeah, I know, you're completely right, I'm not denying that, yeah.
So,
Okay, so if the Greenfield neighborhood potentially would be like null and void if none of the landowners.
we're planning, so it's just, it's a map that it may happen at some point.
When I was listening on Zoom, I thought almost that we were voting on 3 options for the Greenfield neighborhood.
She was just
Three
letting
proposals.
us know.
No.
I almost thought that's what was happening, so I really started speeding. Hopefully none of the police officers are listening, but
You got
No, we're just in discussion.
I was just really
They're just-
putting the pedal to the metal.
They're plans, but there's some variables, and the variable is if a landowner decides to sell. If
But
no-
no one is.
There's only 4 landowners, large landowners.
I know who they are.
And as Peter Opperman said at the last meeting, if you better be planning out for 50 years or more, because he said, I have anything to say about it, I can't use his words exactly, but he said, I'm not gonna let Noble Drive go through my mother's kitchen. And he and the other family members are pretty solid about that. But you
I
met
agree.
with him.
Yeah, we met with them.
You met with him, and Mary is really not interested in seeing Noble Drive through her kitchen.
I'm really uninterested in not being able to see those beautiful cows when I drive by that. I am almost gonna be in the ditch one of these days during calving season. They're darling.
Roger, let's bring this back in, because we've kind of gone all over.
Yeah, we gotta kind of keep things moving
And we've
too.
got it way into the weeds, so, Deanna, does that, you had wanted to talk about that 35 acres, and then we kind of got off on that, Roger had
Yeah.
some points.
I didn't mean to do
You
that.
derailed our train.
Yeah,
There you go.
When does the when is the certification required?
renewal
Late
or-
summer,
Yeah.
late summer.
Yeah, we got some time on the
We need to work on that.
on the egg zoning part.
Roger's
I'll
gonna
keep
get
on
his
bringing it
train
back
back
to you
on the
guys.
track.
Well, what is our process? What do we have to do with that?
Your process is you need to communicate to me if there's changes that is necessary.
Okay, so our homework is to look at what we have and see if we're look at the agenda that you posted for us, Nate.
Yeah,
And see what changes in that we'd like to see, if any. Okay, very good. So can we ask that we look at that and bring it back for the next meeting?
sure,
Okay,
Of course.
put that on so,
okay.
moving on to the next item on the agenda, something that's not on the agenda was in your report was the water that I talked to Tracy on.
Yep, Tracy is working on the well ordinance update to allow farmhouses on ag land to not have to connect to well water. So she's working on it. She indicated to me that she would be able to refer that out. I think she understands what you're looking for.
She does, and we'll use Stoneman's for an example. Stoneman Farm has city water run by it. If their well went bad and they needed to re-drill a well for the cows, they could not hook that well, they could not provide water from that well to the house. They would be required to run city water from the road all the way up to the house, which is approximately $100,000.
I thought we rectified this already.
No. We have not. And that's approximately $100,000 plus the well that they'd have to drill for the cows. And there's only a handful of people in the city where this applies.
Well, there needs to be some sort of
And
way.
anyway, the ball is in Tracy's court
She's committed to doing it,
Okay.
we're just,
and here's my
Stressed and
concern. We've spent a fair amount of time, and I talked to Tracy about this evening. And I said, God forbid if that well failed tomorrow. She said, well, then we'd hurry up and do something. I said, well, you couldn't, because the well failed tomorrow, and you would have to follow the existing ordinance. And that would require the Stoneman family to drill a well and hook into city water.
Well, that's an undue hardship.
So that is, and we'd have no way around that, because we're following the ordinance, that's the law. So we need to, I'd like to see that come before this committee next time.
Can we put it on the agenda?
Because it just keeps.
I cannot, it has to get referred to council and then come here.
Okay.
But, I will ask her tomorrow if I can help with getting that put together.
Because once the situation comes up, then there's no way we can help that family.
We did a bunch of
You
work
say
on
refer
that.
to council, does that have to go through planning commission first or?
No,
Can we refer
it'll
to
start
council?
with you.
It'll go to the council.
It'll probably go to probably Public Works too.
Yeah, unless,
But it'll have to get referred out, council will refer it,
so
the appropriate committees.
if we could not be talking about that in a year from now would be nice.
Because we already talked about it a year ago, so I thought it was
It's been a
solved.
while. Well, I brought a petition to a petition to the council,
Okay, well,
and
we
I
need
still
to
have that
just,
petition.
well, that just needs to happen.
Yeah, so, anyway. So, that's, any other staff report?
No, we gotta do you.
Okay, so we moved, item 5A to the
Sorry.
end of
So
the,
sorry.
so I have to step back from that.
Mhm.
So I am not part of this, and Roger will
Take
be the
over.
chair for the
Did you
item
find your
5A.
train? Put on the track?
This is my daughter's lot. And because we didn't get it through all of the things that needed to be done last year, it has to be run through the committee to the tune of another $1,000.
Ah.
And had I known that, and we should have communicated that,
Yeah.
we would have pushed that through in December.
Yeah.
So that was a $1,000 mistake.
I don't understand.
So we were the only committee that reviewed it?
No,
I don't
no,
understand
it
why it's.
it was already,
I mean, we gave a referral.
when Deanna and I talked about it in December, Tracy was gone, we were waiting on the water part of it, the water fees, and it just slipped through the cracks, and we didn't get it done. So
why is it costing another
it has,
$1,000?
well, because that's the fees, and that's fine, but let's,
So you paid it twice?
Roger, would you
Okay.
take care of 5A for me, please?
Okay, we're talking about the land division, for Mark Jones' property. I guess I'll start out with a, staff report on it.
Okay, so as was noted, this is a previously approved CSM from December 22nd, December of 2022. There's no significant changes. It's creating 2 lots and 1 outlot. So there'll be 1 lot, or lot 2 will be, the zoning has already gone through, but it's approved, but conditioned on approval of the CSM. There are a lot of, actually there's 17 different conditions. I don't know if you want me to read them all, but but they include the claim affidavit, the right to farm, making sure that, and mostly about the water issues. There is one issue that came up and came to our attention that we do need to address. Unfortunately, the way the house is sited, under the residential zoning that it needs to go to, the rear setback is insufficient. So there's two options here. One would be to make lot 2 a little bit bigger so that it gets the 35-foot setback needed, or a variance. So we've talked about those two options. We're asking for Egg and Roll to approve with the conditions, and then also we'll have to work out whether or not we go to a variance or just increase the lot slightly.
So there's basically only like 12.5 feet we're talking about?
Yeah.
It's between
22 feet.
22.6 and 35.
Mm-hmm.
And to change the configuration of the lot, you'd have to take that line that's at an angle and square it up, and that would almost make it non-conforming lots too, wouldn't it? As far as the line goes in the back? I don't
know about
think it-
non-conforming lots.
Well, I just don't think it would be worth changing the lot size.
Sounds like a lot of unnecessary work, time, and money, so I suggest a variance.
Yeah, that's, I guess where I'm going is,
I do have some more information for the committee on that.
What do you
Okay.
have
What is
for us?
Sure.
Okay.
And we've done this in the past. The front of that house faces south. The west side of that house, which faces the road, has no door. Never had a door,
Well, you have a good point.
which is why it wasn't an issue when we looked at it last time.
I don't think it came across to us, but,
So that there's a door on.
so we can treat that as the side yard.
Yes,
Oh,
And it makes-
interesting.
and then it makes it okay.
There we go.
And that's why we didn't
I'm
address
good
it
with
last
that.
time.
right,
So do
Okay.
we even
But
need
there
a
is
variance?
no door on the front of that, on the road side of that house.
Okay. So
Okay.
we don't even need to worry
Then
about
we
a
don't need the
variance?
variance and,
No, you don't even, just, it's okay.
okay.
Oh, wow,
Does,
great.
yeah, what is it, the side is like
Makes a lot of
11
difference.
feet?
10.
And let me,
Oh, yeah, 10 feet.
let me bring one more point up. In a subdivision,
Oh, yeah.
okay, in a subdivision, you have the right, the developer has the right, or the builder has the right to determine which side is the front. They do, well,
If you're on a corner lot,
on a corner lot,
yeah.
yes.
Oh, okay.
If you're on a corner lot, you have the right, so it's this, you have the right to determine that. Because it makes a difference with how much you pay for sidewalk. You take the shortest side and make that the front on a corner lot.
Does the applicant have any problems with any of the 17 conditions? Okay, I move approval of certified survey map CS 2537-24 with the 17 conditions and recommended by staff.
A second?
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you, Roger.
Sorry, who was the second? Were you?
It was me.
The front door makes a difference.
That's on the corner lot, that's on the corner lot.
All right, friends.
I knew that when I put that building up to the side.
Okay, any other business come before the committee?
Do we want to talk about the one thing we mentioned in one of the permit uses for building a home where we were talking about the 50% gross income issue?
Well, that had
That's
to
the
do.
35-acre
That was the
homestead.
35-acre thing.
Right.
Homestead.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my issues as to how it's worded, but I'm just a
I don't,
suggestion to Deanna, if you even care about keeping. I'm
why
just
do
saying,
we,
it's the
why do
way
we
it's
have
written,
it?
it's a big
Are we
loophole,
back
so
to
it's
that?
silly.
Ag district
But I don't know
on that then?
I
It
agree,
matters to any of you.
that's my
You
point.
got to keep.
First of all, how do we ever,
It's not
Follow up on
enforceable, it's not enforceable,
So-
because it's
Yeah.
is
confidential,
there
financial.
some way or other that we can get that thrown out? Can we just,
We
It's a
can
great
change
thought.
that.
so we just have to rewrite it and go through the channels with it? Okay, can we do that at the next meeting? Everybody's.
I'm not gonna take the change through, cause I wanna let you guys, that'll be part of, I'll add it to the changes overall, if there's any other changes that you have for AX.
Yeah, okay,
The
okay.
one local
Okay.
by district that's
That's the
included in
one.
that?
Mhm.
So we
It's
we
in
have a
there.
little time to work.
That's a scary thing.
Yeah, because how are you gonna track that without someone sending
You're
an
not going to
auditor
track
out?
it.
Well, you can't, and I proved that in the
it's
county,
silly because it's a huge
we did,
loophole.
county
Because
homes
it's
is
only
at
one
the county
person.
level.
Yeah.
So one
They threw that
person
out.
can have a garden
Yeah.
and sell cucumbers and
Yeah.
then meet that, so it's,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
the way it's written is a
It's
huge
not-
loophole.
Okay, so we'll bring that up
And if
next
I
time.
don't
We'll
work
bring that up for
otherwise,
the,
there's
for the,
That's why,
the egg plant,
if it's important to keep it, then
the
it's.
healthcare, the words,
Yeah.
the, for us, our
not-
agriculture, that we're gonna review, that would be part of the
would
review.
have to be in a
Oh,
different.
farm
way.
preservation.
Farm preservation.
Yeah, the exclusive ag or the farm preservation
That will-
ordinance, yeah.
That's what.
And that can be one of the changes
Okay.
that we
So
recommend.
that. Okay, anything else to come before the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Made and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you very much.